This is the 7th update of my adventure. I am a non-mechanic, non-fabricator who was trying to make a 1990s Volkswagen turbo direct inject diesel engine work in a 1990s Subaru Sambar Kei van. To date, I've shared the acquisition and refurbishment of the powertrain, building of an adapter system so the transaxle can be clocked or mounted inverted, and the fabrication of a custom oil distribution, cooling, and filtration system. Most recently, I removed the stock powertrain from the Sambar, and I promised last time to have at least a mock-up for you in this video. In other words, a visual of how I hope the new powertrain will rest in the chassis. One thing I need to admit, this is taking me much longer than I expected. Each part of the project that I tackle looks like a 4-hour job, but it actually becomes a 3-day job when factoring in all the times I have to redo things. Part of that is just not thinking of things I needed early on. Some of that is waiting on parts or tools that I did not know that I would need. And some of that is due to my inexperience working metal. I am way behind where I thought I would be in late February. Having said that, I have good news. I am now confident that the powertrain will fit within the box frame without modification thereof, and I am confident that I will be able to get the drive axles reasonably aligned without suspension relocation. It appears that the biggest challenge with the axle alignment is on the left side due to the offset of the differential to that left side. I expected the right side to be the sketchiest due to the limited clearance of the water pump, which is mounted outboard and low on the 1Z version of the Volkswagen TDI. Because of the differential's offset to the left side of the van, the drive shaft on that side must be really short, shorter than I imagined. So short that I suspect I won't be able to just weld a Volkswagen inner CV joint to a shortened Subaru axle shaft. I'm learning as I go, so this issue alone will take me a long time to sort out. I'm realizing that my plan to provide weekly updates was born out of my inexperience, or maybe it's hubris. I didn't know how much I didn't know. And if I am going to finish this by spring, I need to drop back to bi-weekly updates. There is another area in my immediate future that I probably underestimated, which is how the engine and transmission mounts will be located, supported, and what type. This is no knock against younger enthusiasts who have a greater ability to tolerate noise, vibration, and harshness, NVH. NVH is a real thing, by the way, and a significant component of the driving experience. Personally, I don't endure NVH well. I just want this Sambar to end up with greater drivability, which for me will intertwine improved torque as well as a smoother ride quality. To make the latter happen, I will have to get the engine/transmission mounting fixtures right. And at my current skill level, I should expect that to take multiple iterations to get right. On a semi-related tangent, I discovered that the forward transaxle mount on the original powertrain was broken. Also related, by coincidence, the stock forward mount bracket just happens to line up with the point where the Volkswagen engine and transmission join together. Currently, I'm learning about the principles of engine mounting with the hopes that by putting in more effort ahead of plugging in the welder, I will reduce the number of times I have to start over. I found a video which addresses the basics of mounting quite well, I think. If you have interest, there's a link in the description. As I understand it at the time of this video, I have 4 main forces to remember. Number 1, gravity pulling the powertrain down. Number 2, horizontal forces such as lateral, forward, and rearward during acceleration, braking, and turning. 3, rotational forces when the engine applies twisting force to the wheels. Of course, the wheels will apply twisting resistance to the powertrain when the throttle is closed. And number 4, isolating vibrations produced by the engine and transaxle's operation. There is an astonishingly deep rabbit hole containing highly engineered powertrain mounts, such as active mounts, which connect to the car's engine management computer to change the damping characteristics based on what forces the automobile is experiencing. Even if I had skill or expertise to undertake an active powertrain mounting system, I wouldn't. I am looking for the best ride quality that simple systems can deliver. And honestly, that exact ethos is why I love older Japanese cars in the first place. Focusing on the powertrain position and angle. Clocking the transmission had pretty significant limitations. There's only a small range, about 10 degrees, where this transmission could be attached that puts the drive axles ahead of the engine. The reason is that the side of the engine I need the drive axles on has immovable features, such as the oil pump and the vacuum pump. Now, it may not be obvious how the oil pump might be in the way, but it's true. I can't modify the oil pan to increase the clearance because the oil pump is mounted and driven in the very corner of the engine where I need space. So the axle has only about 10 degrees where it can clear both the vacuum pump and the oil pump. Deleting the vacuum pump is not an option because the block itself has a raised area to house the shaft of the pump. Deleting the pump would not provide additional space due to the receiver hole being cast into the block. The limit here means that the forward engine tilt you see is unavoidable. I wish I could tilt the engine rearwards because that would lower the top of the engine relative to the van's floor and reduce the amount of cargo space I'm losing. But tilting the engine backwards would put the axle shafts running through where the oil pump lives, so that's not something I can do. I suppose someone who knew what they were doing could eliminate the stock oil pump and design a dry sump oiling system, but that's above my pay grade. Additionally, I'm trying to make this swap go together so that there's minimal misalignment of the axle shaft/wheels on two planes, horizontally and vertically. I want to place the VW powertrain so that the normal resting place of the wheels aligns vertically with the output shaft of the transmission. Because the new powertrain weighs much more than the original, and I don't know what that amount is, I can't be sure how much the suspension will sag under the new powertrain. A quick aside on suspension sag. This is the amount that the springs compress under the usual weight of a vehicle and its contents. While I don't know the precise amount, I'm certain that this VW powertrain weighs considerably more than the original Subaru powertrain. That will result in more sag in the rear, and I plan to address that later with airbags inside the rear suspension springs. However, I still need to think about that when placing the powertrain. Where do I think the right placement is so that the axle shafts line up with the wheel hubs after the vehicle is supporting its own weight again? As for aligning them horizontally, it looks like I will have ample room to move the powertrain forwards or backwards to align them, so this shouldn't be a problem. The reason I should have ample room to move the powertrain forward or backward is that I planned from the start to cut the floor of the van. I will have to make a cover once the swap is fully completed and all the ancillary components of the powertrain and air conditioning have been mounted. So I sketched out my cut, then drained the fuel tank. I didn't want the shower of sparks to find a way to ignite the vapors in the tank, so I set about using the fuel pump to evacuate the gasoline. There are 3 wires connecting to the fuel pump. What I found is that these two are the positive and negative, though I don't know the purpose of the 3rd wire. I assume it's related to the fact that the pump would only run for 1.5 seconds out of every 10 seconds when I energized it. I assume there is a control circuit that looks for a signal from the carburetor indicating it needs more fuel. And of course, with everything taken apart, the pump never received that signal. I assume the pump is made so that unless it hears from the carb that more fuel is needed, it stops running after 1.5 seconds. It probably is to prevent the pump from flooding the carburetor when the carb already has all the fuel it needs. Anyway, I just connected then disconnected the pump over and over until the tank was empty. With the floor cut, I pulled off the shards and sanded the edges. Otherwise, I would have sliced myself repeatedly while working in the area. Then I cleaned the area with a rag and acetone to remove dirt, oils, or whatever else was on there. As is my practice, I coated the exposed metal with POR-15. That is a rust encapsulation product, they say, and it seems to last. POR stands for paint over rust, I believe. On the topic of mounts, these videos are posted without regard to whether my solution worked or not, so what you see me do may or may not have been the final solution. Keep that in mind, and I will be sure to clarify in later videos if something I made did not work out in the end. I chose to focus on the rear of the engine first, as that seems to be the easiest part of this job. Ideally, the original cross member would work, so that's what I'm trying first. Due to the greater size of the Volkswagen powertrain, the original cross member will not work without modifications. So my plan is to cut the cross member, weld in some plates to offset the main bar, then weld on any attachment points that are needed. So I made and marked my measurements, then cut off the old attachment points that are likely to be in the way. Once I cut open the stock support beam, I could see how thick this pipe is. It seems to me it would be a good idea to bolster the strength of this pipe, and I just happened to have some quarter-inch steel plate that was the same size as the inside diameter. I welded these plates inside the tube at a vertical angle to help support the load. I used cardboard to get an idea of how long and wide I would need these extensions to be so that the support bar would be further back and raised relative to the stock arrangement. Based on how the parts looked when I held them in place, I concluded that I want the extension plates to attach at 55 degrees when the support bar is level. Once I had the support bar level and square, I tack welded the extensions in place. With the attachment brackets bolted to the chassis, I started to visualize what the offset plates would need to look like. I believe that I can come up with an arrangement that supports the engine while still providing enough clearance for the rear bumperette to attach unmodified. That's the goal, at least. So here's the modified support bar hanging level and square against the old brackets that I cut off. So I tack welded everything in this position, then took the unit outdoors to fully weld it. In the end, I think I nailed it. So in review, the clutch assembly is new, the turbo is new, the injector pump is rebuilt with larger pump diameter, and the injectors themselves are rebuilt. The timing belt assembly is new, as is the water pump. The transmission has been clocked, and the oiling, filtration, and cooling system has been modified. The stock Sambar powertrain is removed and already packaged for shipping when that time comes. The TDI powertrain fits. The rear mount system is in process, but I'll be waiting a few days for motor mounts and additional steel tubing to arrive. Finally, I'll post updates every other Tuesday. See you in 2 weeks.